Choose hope, breaking the cycle of domestic violence together. Sponsored by Worthington Industries.
Hello, friends. I'm Angela Ann of 10 TV News. As you may know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The stories we are about to share are of hope and healing, and you will see how LSS Choices for Victims of Domestic Violence is lighting the path to a brighter future for survivors and their children. Domestic violence is a pattern of coercive or violent behavior intended to gain power and control over an intimate partner. The abuse takes on many forms: physical, emotional, sexual, and economic. 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence at some point in their lives. For men, it's 1 in 4. But every day and every moment, Choices is helping to change the lives of victims and restore their hopes and dreams. We will be joined tonight by our community partners, as well as professional staff and survivors. Guiding us is someone we know well. Sue Valillo has been a voice for those who have had to silently suffer. She's the Assistant Vice President of Community-Based Services for Lutheran Social Services, which operates Choices, and we are so glad to have her leadership. Please welcome Sue Valillo.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you for tuning in to learn more about LSS Choices for Victims of Domestic Violence. Our goal is to interrupt the cycle of domestic violence and help victims find the life they have longed for, free from fear and harm. To help us understand the heartbreaking damage that domestic violence causes victims and their children, one brave survivor tells her story.
My relationship with my abuser was very volatile. It was sexually abusive. I actually experienced, I think, all the abuses a person in a domestic violence relationship could experience: emotional, financial, sexual, physical. I tried to get away so many times, and I would, but he would somehow find me. He would sometimes steal my money so I wouldn't be able to pay rent. He stole my car from my job twice. He stole my car from my home twice. He did all kind of stuff. Threw lit cigarette butts at me. Took me to the woods. Beat me. The first time I entered the shelter, I got the resources that I needed, but my abuser found me again. I moved out of town, my abuser found me again. Moved back, my abuser found me again. So I was scared because when he used to find me, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't comply, he's threatened to kill both of us. So it impacted moving, switching jobs. It impacted my dreams. I no longer dreamed. I was just surviving. I lost so much. I lost so much. So I developed anxiety. I developed PTSD. I was tired of going back, accepting him back, thinking he would change, thinking he'd love me. That's why he's back. And I needed a change. I needed something different in my life. But every time Choices with open arms accepted me. And that is important, to know that you have a support system. So I learned a lot of things at Choices. And I learned about self-care and self-love. Being in an abusive relationship with children, I don't even have a word to describe it, but it's definitely life-altering, not only for you, but for your children as well, because you don't realize what they see and what they don't see. In addition to that, how it's gonna affect them later in life. And you take a lot of the blame, because you know if you weren't in this relationship, you could have been a better mother.
LaShondra is not alone when it comes to a story like that. We'll check in with her a little later tonight to hear how she's doing today. For more than 40 years, Choices has operated the only safe haven emergency shelter in Franklin County, specifically for intimate partner violence. But Choices is so much more than a shelter. So, Sue, how else are you assisting victims?
That's right, Angela. Choices provides a 24-hour crisis hotline. We offer individual counseling, peer support, and education groups. We offer victims community and legal advocate services to help them with safety planning and to access needed community resources. But the most important thing we offer is hope. You see a 24-hour crisis hotline number on the screen. If you are watching this and you need help or advice, please call. Get the information you need to be safe.
And we know the COVID-19 pandemic has really been tough for all of us. Now imagine the impact of the words, stay at home, when a victim is trapped with an abuser, unable to reach out for help or leave for safe shelter. Well, we're seeing a rise in domestic violence cases now, and as the community opens up and survivors have more opportunity to take action, we expect a spike in calls and shelter residents. Choices is up to the challenge, but it needs our assistance. And this is where you all can make a difference. So stand up against domestic violence by supporting Choices. Please give by calling our volunteers. You can also text the word Choices to this number, 50155, and make a gift. And if you want to log on from your home computer, just go to lssnetworkofhope.org and then click the Choose Hope icon. It is that easy for any of us, really all of us, to help now and choose hope. Let me also point out that toll-free call to give number connects you to a volunteer who will accept your donation tonight. But as Sue told you, the Choices 24-hour crisis hotline number is for anyone seeking help with a domestic violence situation.
Choices is very grateful for support from the corporate community. The peace sponsor for the Choose Hope program is Worthington Industries, a longtime supporter of Choices. Here is a message from Executive Chairman John McConnell and his wife Amy, a member of the LSS Choices Advisory Board.
Amy and I are proud to support LSS Choices and its efforts to end domestic violence in Franklin County. For 65 years, Worthington Industries has followed a philosophy that's rooted in the Golden Rule. Treat others as we want to be treated, with dignity and respect. That's how Choices helps domestic violence victims become survivors, with dignity and respect.
Choose hope and support LSS Choices.
Domestic violence is a complex issue. Choices has established strong partnerships within law enforcement and the court system to best help our families. We spoke with Sergeant Richard Ketchum of the Columbus Division of Police Domestic Violence Unit, and also with Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein. Take a look.
We have what is coded domestic violence calls, and then we have domestic dispute calls. Dispute would indicate, at least initially, that there's not believed to be any violence in this particular scenario. On average, our agency responds to anywhere from 32 to probably 36,000 calls a year. As far as our unit, the domestic violence unit, we primarily handle felony investigations, but we processed about 205, 210 felony cases last year. This year, unfortunately, we're probably going to surpass that number. The LAP, as we call it, or the Lethality Assessment Program, is a screening tool that's used by our officers on their response to a domestic violence call or an intimate partner style violence call. And the tool allows them to go through a list of 11 questions and assess the immediate danger or lack of danger that this person may be in at that moment. And if a person screens in as high danger, the protocol is the officer then gets on the phone immediately right there at the scene and makes a phone call to the hotline, which is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year-round by Choices staff. it's our goal to get that victim on the phone with the advocate in order to start introducing services right then and there from the scene instead of waiting until a later time. I will tell you that when I sit down with a victim, I'll have a frank conversation with them and say, listen, no one expects you to try to do this on your own. It's very difficult because there's so many dynamics that go into the, hey, why don't you just leave? Which is something we should never tell a victim. That's something they have to be prepared to do and ready to do. There needs to be a plan in place because there's so many dangers that are involved in doing that.
The City Attorney's Office has a dedicated prosecution and victim services unit dealing squarely with domestic violence and stalking. And so Choices is one of our premier partners in making sure that victims and their families are able to leave very dangerous, oftentimes deadly situations. And having a partner in our community like Choices and the shelter in our community for victims to go to, I think is reassuring for us to be able to provide guidance and advice to victims so that we can get full cooperation to actually prosecute the abusers. And oftentimes in these cases, they're hard to prosecute because victims, are in love with their abusers. And there's children, there's family members that are involved, there's tenuous economic situations that are involved. So having a resource like Choices in a safe, dedicated place for families and children to go to so that we can focus on prosecuting a case and working with the victim in the interest of justice and bringing the perpetrator and abuser to justice is really important. And without Choices, we'd have a really difficult time doing that. This is a place that we care deeply about ending domestic violence.
Many of the services that Choices offers are available to those impacted by domestic violence who do not need shelter. Services including individual counseling, peer support, and education groups. Lillian Howard is the Director of Clinical and Supportive Services and coordinates these efforts. Lillian has been working with Choices for 9 years.
Choices offers community advocacy. Community advocates assist people who are still living in the community and they don't necessarily need our shelter services. They're able to get case management services. And those services include domestic violence education, safety planning, and linkage to resources that they might need in the community. Other community services include our counselors, and we have those folks are based in the community providing counseling services to individuals who are struggling with depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorders that come from either still living in that relationship or they've left that abusive relationship. The Family Services Coordinator is an individual that works with the families and the parents and the children in the shelter. That person meets with them, and then they also link the family into services in the community. So they're working on getting them linked into additional services and ongoing services so that they're already in place before they leave our shelter. So we see them come into our shelter and have an opportunity to relax, to feel safe, to get a chance to know that people care about them and to understand that they didn't cause this situation and it's not their fault and they don't deserve to be treated the way they've been treated. We see them have an opportunity to get jobs, get their children into daycare, get their kids signed up and go and back into school, to start to feel good about themselves as an individual and as a person. We give them an opportunity to start to feel hope and that they do have a future and they deserve better than what they've been given.
You might be surprised to know that we have a kennel in the shelter for pets. Mostly dogs and cats, but some pocket pets too. Our partners at Columbus Humane ensure the pets receive outstanding care as an extension of their Safe Haven initiative. Here's Rachel Finney, CEO of Columbus Humane.
Often we'll see that people will stay in a dangerous situation if they don't have a resource to take their pet with them. It's also well documented that an abuser will use an animal as leverage against their human victims. Oftentimes animals are abused in a home where there's domestic violence. It's really critical that people who are experiencing violence in the home have a safe place to go with their pets in order for them to get safe. Choices and Columbus Humane have had a long-standing partnership, and most recently, our partnership really heightened with the inclusion of Columbus Humane staff at the new Choices facility. Team members on the ground at Choices on behalf of Columbus Humane are providing daily care and husbandry to the pets so that residents can focus on wellness for themselves and not worry about their dog getting out for a walk or their cat getting a couple of extra snuggles. Our staff are there to make sure they get cleaned, exercised, fed, and make sure that all of their veterinary needs are met, whether that's flea and tick prevention or a veterinary exam, even spay, neuter, and surgeries where the animal is sick or injured. We'll make sure they get great care.
If you have a pet, then you know how much they're a part of your family. They're also important to the process of healing. Choices does care about the whole family, including pets, four-legged, fluffy, and all. As you consider making a donation, here are some of the ways your gift can help. $25 can supply personal care items like toothpaste and shampoo for shelter residents. For $50, 2 families will have nutritious meals for 1 day. $100 helps take care of a pet for an entire week. And $500 offers a month of after-school snacks to children. For many of these kids, the kindness of having a snack is something new. Call toll-free now to speak with one of our volunteers. Or you can text the word CHOICES to 50155 and make your gift. Let's fill the Choices shelter with hope.
The good in our community is diminished when anyone is a victim of domestic violence. LSS Choices provides a safe haven shelter for victims fleeing their abuser. As a member of the Choices Advisory Board, I know the need is growing. Choices also offers counseling and peer support groups that offer hope for a better future.
Help victims and their families start down a new path, free from fear. Choose hope. Support LSS Choices.
What gives us hope and keeps us going is watching victims gain strength as they find hope for their future. Here is one survivor's story.
I was in a relationship, and the relationship wasn't going where it needed to go. It was a lot of emotional and verbal abuse at first. It was a lot of back and forth. I found out I was pregnant March 11th. And, in being pregnant, my first time, my first child, it was the worst. But what initially brought me to Choices is being in that relationship, my abuser couldn't keep his hands to himself. He ended up kicking me out. He ended up kicking me out numerous of times before that, but he really ended up kicking me out, and so I didn't have anywhere to go. So far as when it comes to Choices itself, it was very different. It was very scary for me because I'm not used to people actually caring, actually being genuine and really wanting to help me and help me jump those barriers that I was avoiding, scared, or just didn't want to deal with. They helped me with that. I've been to homeless shelters before, just the way of life, things happen, and I don't want this to be her life. I don't want her to grow up in shelters or in and out or anything like that, certain things that I had to, go through. Well, right now, of course, we have our own house and everything. It's just us. Things are looking up. My daughter, she's 9 months now. She still goes to daycare. Of course, when I go to work, everything is definitely going up. It's because I changed my mind and my circumstance, and I stood tall. I'm standing. I'm not buckling, I'm not falling, I'm standing. And, standing started when I went to LSS Choices. Once you leave Choices, it's not just, all right, friend, see you later, or, whatever, good luck. It's not it. They still call me. They still check up on me. They still check up on my daughter. When I hear the word hope, I think about my daughter. I think and feel and know that everything's gonna be all right.
If you are watching this and need help, please call the Choices Crisis Hotline number on the screen. We can provide you with information and hope for a future free from violence.
You can help victims of domestic violence become survivors. Your support ensures that Choices can be there for those in need. So call or text the numbers you see on your screen and choose hope.
The pattern of behaviors linked to domestic violence have a profound effect on the mental health of victims and their children. The Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board of Franklin County is an important partner of Choices. Here is CEO Erica Clark-Jones.
Domestic violence and intimate partner violence is really tough. First of all, it's hard on the families that go through it, the individuals that have to live with the abuser, but it's also very hard on the children. The effects of intimate partner violence and domestic violence lingers on years after it happens and the trauma from it. That trauma leads to high rates of mental illness and substance use disorders. For Adam H., we oftentimes make referrals, and that's part of the reason why we support Choices, because we know they are an essential service. So many families have used Choices to be able to step away, get to safety, and plan their next step in a way that's supportive and helpful and productive, not just to the victim, but also to the children that are in the families. Individuals who suffer from domestic violence or intimate partner violence need just a thread of hope on some days to be able to see their way forward. Sometimes when you can't see your way out, you need a line or a lifeline of hope. And Choices stands in the gap to be able to show a way, light a path towards a more hopeful and resilient future.
Domestic violence is found across all demographics, all socioeconomic groups, races, genders, sexual orientation, and ages. And the families of domestic violence victims are profoundly affected as well. Children growing up in an abusive household may believe that is normal and repeat those behaviors later in their lives. And while many are able to break the cycle, their past experience and trauma lingers for a long time. Two local leaders who have had personal experience with domestic violence are here to share their stories.
My grandmother was a victim of domestic violence. My parents were raised myself and my siblings without that shadow of abuse, and I'm so grateful. And so what really gives me hope is to see how that cycle can be broken and what an opportunity that is for others to see. You can really set your family on a different path, and that's why I want to make sure that our residents and the people in Franklin County have access to the services that Choices provides that brings that hope to families for a lasting legacy, a different dream for families.
First of all, what I know about domestic violence is that it affects people from all walks of life. In my own case, as a child, my father was actually murdered in a situation where he was called to help a relative, a female relative of his, and he was murdered along with the relative by her abusive boyfriend. Well, I'm 48 years old, and I can tell you that there's probably no single event that has impacted my life more than the murder of my father when I was 7 years old. As I think about how domestic violence happens in its instant, but it carries on, the impact of it carries on for a lifetime. And so when I think about folks who need shelter, folks who need resources, and most importantly, those folks who need protection, I just can't think of a program better than Choices that provides a pathway to people who need help. Hope exists at every level, in the darkest room, in the darkest alley, and in the most dark scenario that people face, that just beyond that is hope. I think that we can put domestic violence in a place where it belongs, and that's away from our families. And so I really want to challenge Franklin County residents to invest in choices, invest in fighting against domestic violence and standing up for those families and those individuals who are vulnerable and in those dark places, because your help and support can save lives. It can make a difference.
Please give our volunteers a call. Invest in breaking the cycle of domestic violence. You can help change lives. Call or text the numbers you see on your screen and choose hope.
We promised you a follow-up to LaShandra's story of many years of abuse and many attempts at leaving. It is common for victims to seek our help multiple times. But as she said, Choices is still there.
What ended up happening to my abuser is he was murdered. I hadn't seen him for 2 years. And the PTSD was so real that it was hard for me to believe that he was dead. I don't ever have to worry about him again. My life now, since being out of an abusive relationship, is transforming, evolving, unbelievable. So I go to Franklin University and I go to Columbus State Community College, and I am seeking my public administration degree and communications degree. I would just like to say to all the women who have been in an abusive relationship or who is still in an abusive relationship or who is in and out of an abusive relationship, don't be afraid to reach out for help. You can go anywhere you want, but LSS Choices is a good place to start, and it is a good resource. And if you do go back to your abuser, don't be down on yourself. Stay strong, and each time they're there for you. When I hear the word hope, I think of a second chance. I think of a second chance at what's possible for my life. I think of a second chance at what's possible for my life, and I allow myself to dream, and I allow myself to dream big.
I think what gives me hope is probably now my tenure with the unit, because we have seen the success stories. Help is out there, people do care, and we're there and we're willing to help.
I believe people start to have hope that my life can get better, that I really truly don't deserve to be treated this way, and that I can get better, that my life can turn around.
Absolutely, there's hope for victims of domestic violence. Choices fosters hope, and we need so much more of that here in Central Ohio.
We want to again thank the sponsors of our Choose Hope program. The Peace sponsor, Worthington Industries. The Courage sponsors, Nationwide and Quantum Health. The Freedom sponsors, Grange Insurance, Big Lots Foundation, and Scott's Miracle-Gro.
Thank you to all of the sponsors whose names you see. We appreciate their support and are grateful they joined us to choose hope. We thank all of our program participants for educating us on the many facets of domestic violence.
And thank you to LSS Choices for being a safe haven for the women and the men and the children who seek safety and support. And thanks to all of you for tuning in tonight. And to those of you who made a gift tonight, a big heartfelt thank you. And it's not too late to join in. The phone lines will be open for the next 30 minutes. You can text a gift anytime this month. And the website also offers an easy opportunity to contribute. With your help, Choices can continue to break the cycle of domestic violence for victims and their families. Your support affirms the compassion and the character of our community.
Thank you for choosing hope.
Choose hope. Breaking the cycle of domestic violence together. Was sponsored by Worthington Industries.